to create some more content for you. He's talking about some directors he knows. These are the Teenage Film Snob hiatus shows.
Welcome to Us, a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighbourhood film snob. It's another hiatus director-focused show. Last week we had M. Night Shyamalan's list, which was really fun to do, and made me really actually want to go back and watch all of his movies, which is what this whole series is doing. You know, I'm going in blind in as much as I haven't deliberately rewatched anything before ranking them, because I'm going off how I feel about these movies. At the end of each list, I'm like, damn, I really wish I'd rewatched these. Again, at the time of recording, I'm still not on my hiatus technically. I'm still working and recording these in my spare time. Right now it is September at the time of recording, but by the time this drops, it could be January. I'm not quite sure. So by the time I go on my actual hiatus, I will have time to rewatch all of these movies, and hopefully I'll have the same feelings. Maybe they'll have changed a little bit. I was going to do an episode on Yorgo Lanthimos today, but I feel like after writing his movies down and looking at the list, I've only seen each of them once, and my memory of half of them is not strong enough. So I'm not going to do Yorgo Lanthimos, but what I will do is I'm going to do an episode later where I'm going to do European directors making American films. Or European directors, and then I can have some European films and some American films. A little bit different from the European film series, which was all non-English speaking films, because Yorgo has made some wonderful Greek movies and some wonderful American films as well. So instead, I thought I would turn the camera or the microphone home and focus on an Australian filmmaker, because I haven't done any Australian filmmakers yet. And there is one constantly in the news for all the right reasons that I feel like I've kind of overlooked thus far, and that is the incredibly talented James Wan. James Wan's an Australian director. He has been on the scene for over 20 years now. He had a very strong debut with his film Saw, which pretty much the entire world is familiar with. Saw was a game changer at the time. We hadn't seen a fresh new voice in horror in a little while. And Saw really upped the ante. It was meant to be an Australian production, but James Wan and Lee Winnell, who also worked on the script, could not secure funding in Australia. No one wanted to make it. And it was really fascinating because if you've ever seen Saw, it's a very small film. It's three guys in a room for most of the film, and then some kind of exterior shots and a couple of other things going on, which I think they added once they got the financing from the American studios, if I remember correctly. But until that point, it was a very small film. But yeah, no one in Australia wanted to fund it, so they took their screenplay to America. They got it made. They entered a bunch of festivals, and I'm sure it wasn't overnight, but it almost seemed like an overnight success. I was working in the video store at the time when Saw came out, and we were very excited to have something cool and different. And Saw came out at a time when I was really starting to get into horror and thrillers. My favourite film at the time was probably Seven, David Fincher, another director who we will be talking about. And the parallels were definitely there. So James Wan has been on my radar since the beginning of his career, which, you know, I can't say about a lot of filmmakers. I think him and Edgar Wright might be the only two that I was kind of present for and aware of the entire time. Tarantino's career began before I knew who he was. Kevin Smith's career began before I knew who he was. Robert Rodriguez, so on and so forth. But James Wan, I remember his debut. James Wan has worked almost exclusively in America since then. He's made a couple of films over here in Australia. But Warner Brothers, I don't know when Warner Brothers got involved. He made a couple of horror films early on after Saw. I think Warner Brothers got involved with The Conjuring, and I think since then James Wan has pretty much had an overall deal with Warner Brothers. And it's worked to both Warner Brothers' favour and his favour, you know. Warner Brothers have come under fire a lot over the last 10 or 15 years due to the handling of their DC properties. The whole Snyderverse controversies and stuff like that, and the studio interfering. So Warner Bros. Have definitely taken a bit of a hit publicly for that. But one area they've always remained strong has been their horror branch. They've had hit after hit after hit in their horror branch, and their kind of main flagship, I suppose, has been James Wan. So we're going to talk about his films today. There's only one of his movies I haven't seen. I've never seen Dead Silence, and I couldn't get my hands on it. So that will be omitted from the list. There are also a handful of his films I've only seen once, so you know the rules. Anything I've only seen once tends to be a little bit lower out of fairness because I haven't had a chance to watch it multiple times yet. Interestingly, with this list, I wrote my top 10 out, and then I changed it, and I haven't done that yet in this series. Generally, in this series, once I've blocked it in, I've been pretty happy with it, and I've just made the caveat, oh, this could change. But I wrote it down, I looked at it, and I changed it again because I didn't like the final standings, kind of where they were. So we're going to go through all 10 of his films that I've seen. It's mostly horror, but there are a couple of other movies in there as well. So we'll have a little bit of fun with the work of James Wan, and then we'll get out of here. So, coming in 10th place, and the reason why it is in 10th place is simply because A, I don't really remember it too much, and B, I've only seen it once. And that is Insidious Chapter 2. Insidious Chapter 2 follows on from the events of the first film. I only watched these films for the first time last year, so they're relatively new to me. But I kept hearing how scary the Insidious franchise was, so I was like, all right, I've got to check this out. Insidious 2 stars Rose Byrne, who might be my favourite Australian actress of all time. I'm a huge Rose Byrne fan, going all the way back to Rage in Placid Lake, which is a very old Australian film, came out in 2003, I want to say. I actually posted about it on Instagram not too long ago, and Ben Lee reposted it, which was kind of cool, because Ben Lee was in that film as well. But Rage in Placid Lake, excellent. Rose Byrne, excellent. And Patrick Wilson as well. And in the first film, we find out that their son, first they think there's something wrong with their son, that he is possessed. They think there's some possession going on. And I can't remember exactly what the terminology is, but it's not that he's possessed, he's haunted. It's like there's something inside his psyche. It's not so much possession as it is, it follows him everywhere. Their house isn't haunted, he's haunted, I think the line is. It's been a while since I've watched these movies. I've only seen them once, and you can tell already that my memory's not so good. But Insidious 2 continue that journey. If I remember correctly, it follows more the father this time, because it turns out not only was their son haunted, but it was passed on through kind of genetics, like it's a hereditary trait through the men of their family. That's all I remember. That is all I remember about Insidious 2. I'm sorry I can't remember more. I did enjoy it, but I saw this like 700 movies ago, so I just don't quite remember. I've got to give it another viewing. That is the downside with watching as many movies as I do. Back when I watched less, I remembered them better because there was less, occupying my mind. But now that I'm watching so many, like if it's a first-time viewing and it's not in theaters, sometimes it doesn't stick with me as well as it should. But I will rewatch Insidious 2 and give you my update once I get there. So in 9th place, we're going with James Wan's first franchise film. And when I say first franchise, I don't mean a franchise that he created, because all of the films, the Saw films, the Conjuring films, they weren't necessarily intended to be franchise films. They became franchises later. I'm talking about a film where James Wan stepped in the middle of a franchise and took over. And I'm talking about Fast and Furious 7. Now, just like the Saw films, just like any major franchise film when there's more than 5 entries, the films do get a little bit mixed up, so I might get a little bit confused here. But Fast and Furious 7 is, I believe, the first one after Paul Walker had passed away and they had to say goodbye to him, if I remember correctly. These films are all kind of the same to me, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. When I was a snob a few years back, before this podcast began, I looked down at the Fast and Furious franchise, thought they were dumb, thought they were silly, thought they were a waste of the time. Now that I have changed and evolved, I still think they're dumb and silly, but I do not think they're a waste of time. I think they're highly entertaining, and there's nothing wrong with watching Dom and his gang tear up Los Angeles or another country in their race cars for a bit of fun. This one has The Rock in it. I want to say this is the one where Dom had to jump from one car to another over a bridge, if I remember correctly. This is also the one where Dom is at the top of a parking garage and he stomps on the ground and the parking garage falls apart. Beyond that, there's not much you need to know. I wish I remembered it more. I watched it a long time ago. But all you need to know is that there was some sort of MacGuffin that needed to be stopped, and the racing crew got involved and did it. And it was Dom, and it was The Rock. I think it might be the second last movie with The Rock. The last movie with The Rock was Fast and the Furious 8, and that's when The Rock broke a pair of handcuffs with his bare hands and moved an entire guided missile also with his bare hands. But the seventh one, yeah, I don't have much more to say about it because, again, my memory's kind of weak here, but it was a lot of fun. But the fact that it's not too memorable, and it's not memorable because of James Wan. It's not memorable because all those movies do bleed into one another. But I did enjoy it. I just wish I remembered more of it. So let's move on before I embarrass myself further. Let's go to number 8. Number 8 is Insidious 1. Insidious 1 is terrifying. I do remember this one enough to talk about some of the major plot points. The young boy, I can't remember the actor's name, but he went on to play Harley in Iron Man 3 and then returned in Avengers Endgame. He was the little boy who kind of looked up to Tony Stark and helped him rebuild his suit in Iron Man 3. So he plays the young boy in this movie. He starts to get sick. He starts to show, like, he gets clammy and tremors, and he's kind of, his sleep is disrupted, and then he gets put into a coma and he won't wake up. And this family is so worried, and they move house and all these sorts of things. And then they have to bring in this spiritual guide played by Lin Shaye. Lin Shaye has been an actress for a long, long time, and she's kind of been James Wan's secret muse a lot. She's shown a lot of his films. And she is the one who says, your house isn't the thing that's haunted, it's your son. And Angus Sampson is one of the ghost techs as well. If you're an Australian listener of mine, you'll know Angus Sampson as an actor and a comedian, and he's done a lot of... He's probably... During my era growing up, during my teenage years, you would see him most on Thank God You're Here, which was an improv show. Thank God You're Here was this improv show where they'd bring on Australian celebrities and they get thrown into the middle of a scene, but they hadn't been prepped on it, and they had to kind of improv how the scene would go. It was a very, very funny show. I talked about it a lot on the Danny Boy show. I appeared on that earlier this year, last year. I don't know when this episode's going to drop. But anyway, Angus Sampson is it, Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne. And it's just there's an ongoing sense of dread that just hangs over the film. There's never really a bright moment. You just always feel unsettled. The lipstick demon, as it's come to be known, I knew that jump scare was coming. I'd seen that clip so many times. It absolutely got me. It didn't matter how much preparation I did for it. When it showed up, I absolutely jumped out of my seat. It terrified me. Well done, James Wan, for scaring me with something I already knew was coming. They also used the Tiny Tim song Tiptoe Through the Tulips over and over again to incredible effect. Makes the film very, very creepy. Insidious is wonderful. I think it is one that kind of falls in the cracks a little bit, as does Dead Silence, because James Wan has 2 huge horror franchises under his belt. But I do really like Insidious, and I can't wait to watch it again. Coming in at 7th place, and we're almost at the end of my single watches, is James Wan's most recent film. In 2023, the DC Extended Universe, the DCEU, ended, giving way to a new universe that was about to be birthed by James Gunn, and the final film in the franchise was Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I remember a lot of people poo-pooing this film. They just refused to see it. Their argument being that if the franchise was ending, what was the point in seeing this movie? Now, I would argue when Return of the Jedi came out, people weren't like, well, the franchise is ending, why would I bother seeing this? I imagine when Last Crusade came out, people were like, well, it's the end of the franchise, why would I bother seeing this? It was a very strange attitude that film kind of cinema goers took, and it was mainly DC fans, to be fair, and mainly Snyderverse fans. But I feel like this film was poorly maligned. I think that it was unfairly critiqued. There were a lot of things I liked about this over the first one. The reason it's so low is because I've only seen it the one time, but I do imagine upon repeat viewing, this will probably rise up pretty high in my James Wan films. I really liked The Lost Kingdom. The Lost Kingdom takes place after Aquaman. It's been a few years. Arthur Curry is now in charge of Atlantis. Mira is in it a little bit, but this was following the Amber Heard scandal, so I think her scenes were cut also. But there's a new threat on the horizon. These warriors from a hidden kingdom are starting to threaten the waters, and Arthur is forced to turn to the one person he thinks who could help him kind of solve the mystery and take down this new villain, his brother Orm, played again by Patrick Wilson. Patrick Wilson is a mainstay of James Wan's films. I really liked the chemistry between Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson throughout this film. I love that instead of it being kind of a romantic adventure, which the first one was, it was a brother bonding through adventure, overcoming their differences to save the world, basically. Pardon me. Oh, my goodness. So I really like that. The new villains, these kind of, from this hidden kingdom, the villain, the boss of the villain, sorry, that sneeze really rattled my brain, is played by this guy from Game of Thrones, Pylu something, I can't remember his last name, but he was like the one who was trying to take over the throne. I don't know. I don't remember Game of Thrones much either. I don't remember much of anything clearly this morning. But one thing I really liked about this film was the color scheme. In Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, this hidden kingdom that kind of reappears in these warriors, it's all very black and green. It reminded me a lot of Minas Morgul in Lord of the Rings, where the Nine Riders live. Blacks and greens. And for a very blue film, it's obviously the ocean is blue. It was nice to see those different depths and kind of color hues come in as well. Black Manta makes a reappearance as well, so he can take vengeance on Arthur from the first film, and he's a huge villain in the movie as well. As I said, it's been a moment since I've seen it, so I don't remember everything, but I remember really enjoying it. I love the action in it. And one thing I really liked about this film as well was it had a much shorter runtime. The first Aquaman is like 2.5 hours long, which is kind of insane. And my feeling on Aquaman, the first one, is they were like, we might only get to do this once, let's throw everything into the film. So the second one, really good, really fun, great swashbuckling adventure. I know people are getting sick of that word now, but I think it is. And the highlight of the film is definitely, for me, the relationship between Orm and Arthur. So Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, great flick. In sixth place, it's the final movie of James Wan's that I've only seen once. And it's a film I watched very recently, and I do remember quite well. It's a Kevin Bacon film called Death Sentence. And I found out about this movie thanks to the boys at Movie Boners. They did a series, an episode on revenge films, and I think it was Dustin who brought up Death Sentence. And oh boy, is this film incredible. First of all, anytime I watch a revenge film that doesn't rely on abusing women as its catalyst, I'm always a fan of. Not to say there isn't a place for it. I do understand that it is a trope of the revenge genre, the idea being that once a female character is brutalized, they get to kind of rise from the ashes and become this incredible force of vengeance. I understand that's a trope. I understand that has a place in film. But I think it's a very lazy and overused trope. Like, yes, you can do that, but how many different ways can you do it at this point? It feels like it's really all said and done. This is not that. This film opens with a montage of family home movies and kind of the parents watching their kids grow up. It's very sentimental and emotional and gooey and heartfelt, and that's because something terrible is going to happen in the first 10 minutes. Kevin Bacon and his son are driving back from what I think is a sports game. They need to get fuel, so they stop over at a petrol station, or a gas station for those of you in America. They witness a crime happen, and during it, the crime goes wrong, and this gang who are kind of knocking off the store end up killing Kevin Bacon's son. It turns out it's part of an initiation ritual to become part of the gang, and Kevin Bacon is racked with guilt and despair and frustration and sadness, as any parent would be, and he vows to take revenge upon these people. So he starts investigating, he starts trying to find out where they are, he gets a bunch of weapons with the idea he's going to take them down and make them pay. Unlike most revenge films, that would be it. It would work, game over, all good. This is a cautionary tale. This is a film that explains why vigilantism is not the right solution and why revenge is not a good idea because he's an older guy. He's not a skilled fighter. He doesn't have the ability to do the things he needs to do, and it goes wrong, and he ends up putting the rest of his family, his wife and other son, in further danger. And if I remember correctly, spoilers for a 20-year-old film, his wife also dies at the hand of this gang because of his stupidity. Enter the third act, where he now has nothing to lose, and he heads into the lion's den and has to go take it out on the remaining gang members and tries to finally get his vengeance. It's an incredibly brutal film. It's very violent, it's very dark, it's very upsetting, but it's a hell of a revenge film. And a great revenge film, not just because the vengeance is swift and just and bloody, also because it goes the extra step to explain why maybe revenge is not such a good idea. I was blown away by this. I couldn't believe I'd gone so long without watching it. I only watched it for the first time last year. I imagine many repeat viewings are in my future. But Death Sentence is a fantastic film. And I think, the inclusion of an actor of Kevin Bacon's caliber only strengthens the film. So I really like Death Sentence. We're now heading into the final 5, my top 5 James Wan films of all time. I have seen all of these films a minimum twice, which is good. And some of them I watched fairly recently, so you would hope my memory would be better. I also don't feel any more sneezes coming on, so hopefully my brain will maintain its self. That sentence does not bode well. In 5th place, I'm going with the sequel to a huge franchise starter, and that is The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 continues the adventures of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who we were introduced to in Conjuring 1, played by Patrick Wilson yet again, and Vera Farmiga, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but she's an incredible actress. Vera Farmiga, holy Christ, she's got an incredible resume. One of my favourite roles of hers is from a film called Up in the Air by Jason Reitman. If you've never seen Up in the Air, do yourself a favour and check that out right now. But this is the next adventure of this couple. They have to head to London. It's based on the historical event of the Enfield poltergeist. All of these stories are rooted in truth, whether you believe in spirits and ghosts and goblins and all that sort of stuff or not, is irrelevant. These were real people who did conduct exorcisms, who did investigate paranormal occurrences. Whether they found anything is irrelevant for these films because these movies they're entertainment. The reason why this one's ranked a little bit lower for me is almost purely due to runtime and franchise building. It's a great flick, but the first one, which I'll talk about shortly, is grounded in a lot more realism. This one takes a lot of leaps. This one has monsters in it, like the nun. I don't know, I haven't done enough reading, but I don't think Lorraine Warren was ever really haunted by a nun. Very cool character idea, very creepy character idea, but definitely a monster, definitely something to kind of fly on a banner for a studio, I think. It also has the Crooked Man, who I really liked as a villain. He was meant to get his own movie, and that's never happened, so hopefully he will. But yeah, the story follows this family, this single mum and her daughters, who are being haunted in their Enfield home. At first, they think it's the previous homeowner who died in the chair of that house, haunting simply because he wants his house back. But then we find out that maybe there's more evil forces, more malevolent beings at play. I struggled for the word there for a second. I really like this film. I think it's suitably scary. A lot more traditional jump scares than this one. I would say some of them are a little bit easier jump scares than others. And one of my favourite moments in this film is when Ed Warren gets to sing a bit of Elvis, and he plays the guitar and stuff like that. It's a very, very sexy moment in a very scary film. So Conjuring 2, great flick, a little bit long, a little bit world-buildy, but definitely a worthy film on the list. I imagine once I've seen some of those earlier ones a second time, this one might move down a little bit, but that's okay. It's still a great flick. In 4th place, Aquaman. I know I critiqued its runtime before, and I stand by that critique, but boy is Aquaman fun. Aquaman has no right to be as good as it is, and I put it solely, well, not solely, but a lot of it James Wan. We are reintroduced to Arthur Curry after his debut in Justice League. Now, in the film universe, we first introduced him in the 2017 Justice League. However, there's a better version of Aquaman in the 2021 Zack Snyder cut. But this film follows that, and Arthur's trying to find his place. He's half man, half Atlantean. I forgot what they were called. I was going to say half Aquaman, but no, he's full Aquaman. And he's kind of escaping the responsibilities of both worlds. On the land, his father wants him around by the lighthouse to keep their family going and to protect the town that he's from. And then on the other hand, you have Mira and Volko, played by Willem Dafoe, who say he needs to come back to the sea. The sea is without a leader. He needs to take the throne because right now his half-brother Orm has kind of taken over and he has no claim to it and all these sorts of things. So Aquaman reluctantly heads to the sea because Orm is going to launch an attack on Earth, or at least the people of the land. And there's a power struggle. It's very Shakespearean in kind of like this battle for the throne type thing. Aquaman has to go on a quest. He's looking for a trident. He's looking for a bunch of things that will help him claim his throne. He goes to a secret island where there are dinosaurs, which is insane. There's a bunch of Black Manta stuff. We get the origins of Black Manta. Aquaman is responsible for the death of Black Manta's father, and thus launching their feud. The costumes in this are incredible. The action scenes. There's a sequence, I want to say it's in Greece, where Black Manta and his minions are chasing Aquaman through this town, and these, kind of high-speed red laser blasts are exploding. All of this wonderful architecture and statues and stuff like that. It's breathtaking. It's very, very cool. It's a great action flick. I credit a lot of the action in this film to Wan's previous work in Fast and the Furious. I think he learned how to make an action film making Fast and the Furious. This is just my thoughts. He hasn't said this. And then perfected it with Aquaman. Even though it runs a bit long, boy, is it entertaining. You get Ocean Master. You get Black Manta. You get a bunch of underwater or under the sea kind of kingdoms and people and characters and stuff like that. You even get his drum playing octopus. Like, there's so many silly, crazy things in this movie, but it's really, really fun. In third place, and this is where I changed the order. My first, second, and third I thought were pretty locked in, and I changed them. In third place, at least for today, is Saw. I have kind of an unofficial rule. I've said a few times now, I don't think a filmmaker's debut film should be their best film. If it is, how can they demonstrate their growth? How have they become better storytellers if their first film is still their best one? Saw was originally in the number one spot for me. But if I think about rewatchability, if I think about entertainment value, if I think about the ideas and the complete package of a film, I'm very comfortable with Saw being in third place. It's a great film, but he definitely has learnt a lot, James Wan, since Saw. And to not showcase those films above Saw would be a disservice to James Wan's filmography. For those who haven't seen Saw and only know the film and the franchise by reputation, this is not a quote-unquote torture porn film. I don't really buy into the genre torture porn, but people insist on making it happen. Stop trying to make fetch happen. This is very much a thriller. It follows the story of two cops who are investigating a serial killer. They refer to as the Jigsaw Killer, but he's not really a serial killer because he's never killed anyone. He just puts people in dangerous situations. And they have to try and get their way out. So basically, Jigsaw, if you're not familiar with the franchise at all, Jigsaw is a man hell-bent on teaching people who are ungrateful for their lives to claim their lives back. So he puts them in a situation where they have to fight for their life, and if they're able to succeed and get out of the trap, they will be more grateful for the life they have and be more likely to change their ways. He feels that the prison system doesn't work, but his system does. So it follows these two detectives as they're investigating it. Danny Glover is one of the detectives, and he is hell-bent on arresting this doctor, played by Carrie Always, who you might know from The Princess Bride. Dr. Gordon, he believes that he's the Jigsaw Killer, but he can't prove it, and he's kind of chasing him down. He's beyond obsessed at this point. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, two men wake up in a bathroom. One of them is Dr. Gordon. So the story of Danny Glover kind of chasing down Dr. Gordon is happening in a different timeline. We're kind of watching the film over a period of weeks, maybe even months. So Dr. Gordon wakes up in a bathroom with Adam, played by Lee Winnell, and they're chained to pipes in a bathroom. They have a cassette tape, and it instructs them basically that they're here to play a game and they have to try and survive. Unlike the sequels are much more focused on the traps, much more focused on the life or death of getting out of a rack that's going to twist your head off, or a needle pit or something like that. This film has them in a trap that's a long game. All the other Saw traps in the following films last for about 30 seconds to a minute or so. This one, it's meant to be a whole day. And the idea is that using their wits, they should be able to solve the problem as to why they're here and how to get out by looking for clues. So it's a very different film from the first one. It's a much slower paced film. It makes you sit with what's going on. And then you kind of hopefully can figure out what's going on as they learn as well. Monica Potter is also in the film as Dr. Gordon's wife. Shawnee Smith plays Amanda, who is the girl stuck in the reverse bear trap. If you don't know what that is, I'll let you figure that out. That's fine. And it's an incredible film. The pacing is a lot slower, which does make it a little bit harder to watch. I will say that it might be a little bit too slow by modern standards. Every time I do watch, I do feel the film at times can drag. Never boring, just takes a while to get going. But the performances are incredible, the traps are really wonderful, and it spawned an entire franchise. But it's just a really intelligent thriller. That's what I like about it. Plus, this movie has one of the greatest twist endings, maybe of the 21st century. When the final music kicks in and you find out what's going on, you get the reveal, I don't know a single person who wasn't gobsmacked. It's not, you cannot see this twist coming. It's right under your nose and you cannot see it coming. And every time it happens, I've watched this film probably a dozen times, every time it happens, I'm impressed. I'm like, man, this really is seamless. Well done, James Wan. Well done, Lee Winnell. So Saw is in third place. It is a classic. It spawned an entire franchise. It's definitely on some sort of Mount Rushmore, if you want to use that as a tool for measurement. There are just a couple of other films I enjoy a little bit more and think have built on what James Wan created with Saw. So in second place, I think this is probably going to be my most controversial one. I think this is going to be a divisive one that some people agree with and some people think I'm crazy. In fact, most people will probably think I'm crazy. But in second place, I'm putting in Malignant. I've talked about Malignant before. Annabelle Wallis plays a pregnant woman who is in an abusive relationship. When she loses her baby and he attacks her, she splits her head open and she starts to have weird bleeding and dreams and all these sorts of things going on. During the course of the film, and I will spoil a bit of it. I've spoiled it in a lot more detail in a previous episode. I won't spoil it as much in this one, and just in case you missed that episode. She finds out that when she was born, she was a conjoined twin. And the dreams she's having may be linked to a brother that didn't survive. I'm going to leave it there because what follows is one of the most bonkers, insane films you've ever seen. Yes, it's got scary moments, for sure. Yes, it's violent. But mostly, it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in the best possible way. And Annabelle Wallis and the police are trying to track down this killer who's attacking people throughout the city while Annabelle Wallis is trying to deal with her concussion and these kind of intrusive thoughts and dreams preying on her. It is insane. It's very entertaining. It's cheesy at times. It is a lot of fun. But, oh my god, I don't know how else to talk about it without spoiling it. I know I spoiled it previously, but given we are focusing exclusively on James Wan films, you might have clicked this episode just to talk about James Wan films. Malignant is incredible. So good. That's all I'm going to say. Which brings me to number one. You should have been able to figure this out by now. There's one glaring omission from the list so far. as much as Saw spawned a franchise, this next film, this final film, spawned a universe. And it's not even because of that. Yes, it spawned sequels and spin-offs and I think rides and Hollywood Horror Nights exhibitions and all sorts of stuff. And yes, it created merchandising and all those wonderful things. It is just a really good horror film. And it's so good that it got an R rating in America, an MA in Australia, and nothing in the film warrants that rating other than how scary it is. There is no cursing, there is no gore, there is no sexuality. It is just scary. And the film I'm talking about, of course, is The Conjuring. I love The Conjuring. It's so well done. We're introduced to the characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're heading into a brand new case. Basically a family's just moved into a house. After the first night, they find their dog has died mysteriously. They're having weird dreams and hearing noises and all sorts of things are happening and they can't track down what's going on. So they call a priest and the priest brings along the Warrens. The reason I love this one so much is that, first of all, it's very grounded. There's no monsters. It's all haunting. And whether you believe in ghosts or spirits or not, we've all been in a house when it makes noise when it probably shouldn't. We've all jumped at a creak in a floorboard. We've all seen something that isn't there in a reflection. It's a very normal thing. The other thing I like about this more so than the other films is that in the other films they're like, yep, we're coming. We're coming to bust some ghosts, basically. In this film, they respect science. They respect due process. And they're like, look, 9 times out of 10, it's not a haunting, it's something else, and you can't just come to us, you got to go through the scientific fields. And they really spend a lot of time, not even a lot of time, but they spend enough time explaining that these guys weren't tricksters, at least in the film version. I don't know about real life. And they spend a lot of time kind of laying that groundwork. The film has a couple of jump scares, but what it does, kind of contrary to a lot of jump scares, is just build tension. Just build tension slowly. And then sometimes there's a jump scare and sometimes there's a fake out and then it just kind of goes back to normal and you're like, damn it, like, why did you do that to me? The cast is fantastic. The kids, Joey King and a bunch of the young girls are excellent. They play Afraid very well. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are just lovely and wonderful and a sense of, they bring this real warmth to a very scary film. The practical effects are excellent. All the different kind of ghost detecting traps or spirit detecting traps they're using are very cool as well. I think that Saw demonstrated the potential of what James Wan could do, and The Conjuring was like a rebirth. The Conjuring was like, give him studio money and check out what he can do. And for James Wan, it's really been strength to strength since The Conjuring. Again, I haven't seen Dead Silence. Insidious also is a wonderful film. I don't want to downplay how wonderful Insidious is. But The Conjuring was like this kind of cinematic rebirth of like, I'm a franchise guy, I'm a studio guy. If you give me the tools, I can deliver not just a cool and interesting film, but something that's going to satisfy critics, audiences, and the box office. And that seems to be mostly true. He hasn't had too many failures, I would say. I think, maybe Aquaman 2 underperformed a little bit, but that was not James Wan's fault. But yeah, he's an incredible filmmaker. I really like what he's doing. I think his next film to come out is a Cthulhu film, which is so ambitious. I'm really excited to see what he does there. But it's nice to see an Australian person make it in Hollywood and not just do that, but have, an impact on genre films. Like, there are a couple of Australian filmmakers out there, most of them doing kind of more kind of classier, straightforward films. You've got George Miller, of course, who's very much a genre guy. You've got Baz Luhrmann, who tends to be much more of a musical guy. But James Wan is bringing it in both horror and superheroes. I hope he gets a chance to work in James Gunn's universe, because I like the creativity he brings. I loved Swamp Thing, which was a TV show he produced with DC. So I hope that James Wan gets to do a bit more in the superhero vein of things. But there it is. My first Australian filmmaker. I feel like I was a little bit rocky on this one. I was a bit gurgly and I forgot a few things, so apologies if it was a bit hard to follow. I have recorded a lot of these back to back to back to back, so my brain is probably taking a bit of a hit. But we will continue to power through. I'm not sure what I'll do next. I do like the idea of talking about European directors again, but we might do some UK stuff. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'll figure it out. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to follow on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all those sorts of things. You can send in some comments and stuff like that. And next week we'll have something new. But until then, as I say every week on this podcast, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. I'll see you next week.